Hi YouTube, me again. I have been trying to figure out what to wear. Today is my doctor's appointment. So here's where I'm at. 7 weeks postpartum today. Overall, not terrible. I feel like this is about where I was, honestly, probably 14, 15 weeks pregnant. Which is disappointing, you know. But I'm trying not to be hard on myself, and I'm trying to shift my diet, as I mentioned in the last video. But I wanted to get on here and tell my birth story now. Like, I have a minute. The baby is napping. My toddler is at my mom's house. My husband is doing husband things. And so I thought I'll just try to tell the story as quickly as I can. So here was the deal. I did not go into spontaneous labor. I expected that to happen. As we know, like, if you followed this channel at all, if not, you can go back and watch it. I've just been documenting this stuff for myself. I'm not really here for entertainment value. But if you get anything out of watching this, cool. I'm glad you're here. So if you know anything about this channel, my story, whatever, I had a premature daughter that is now 3 years old. Everyone expected this baby that I just had to go early. Like, we were concerned that I would go earlier than 35 weeks. Like, we were worried. Everyone was worried, okay? That is not what happened. I actually went over my due date and I got induced. So I went into the hospital. Again, the hospital is about 45 minutes away. And everything was able to be planned. We did dinner. I put my 3-year-old down for bed. By the time I got done putting her down for bed, my mother-in-law was already here. We talked to her for a minute. We got everything together. We left. We went and we picked up my mom. We went to the gas station. My husband got an energy drink, because this was all happening, like, I was supposed to be at the hospital at 10 o'clock that night. So we got there about 10 o'clock. We had to be buzzed in because it was after hours. So, like, we had to, like, hit the button and call in. So we had to, like, they had to open the door for us. Ironically, something funny, I am gonna, like, tell details because I am a very detailed person, and while it can be annoying and not very entertaining, and maybe you don't enjoy watching this, I am, like I said, documenting this for myself. And I didn't document things with my 3-year-old, and I want to do that with this. So what's funny about this is my husband dropped my mom and I off to wait. And so we're standing there waiting for him, and an employee came through, called in, and just said, just hold this door open and they'll let you in. You know, you can just go in. Just hold the door open until he gets here and go in. So we're standing there, and I noticed a smell. But anyway, and it was like a side door. So, like, here's your main entrance, and then here's the side of the main entrance, and here's where the door was. But still, and I guess it stands to reason, but it was very creepy at the time. So we're standing there, and my husband joins us, and we're getting ready to walk in, and my mom, like, rocked back on her foot somehow, kind of funny. And that was when we all looked down and saw just dead birds. Isn't that weird? But what I think it is it's like a tall hospital. The one here in our town is not, and so, you know, you're not used to that. But that one is like a taller hospital, and I'm thinking, you know, birds fly into the windows, and, you know, that's what I'm thinking it is. But it was pretty gross. It was pretty gross. Anyway, we went ahead and went on up. Like, I went to the bathroom. Like, what's weird about this is if you've been in spontaneous labor before, it's so weird to think that all these things just have, like, I'd been having contractions for like 2.5 weeks, but I just was like accustomed to them at that point, you know, and I'm like, yeah, I'm having it, but they're obviously not very, like, productive. I've been psyched out so many times now, so I'm just walking through, everything's normal. I'm not, like, in labor. I went to the bathroom in the hallway, and I'm like, okay. We went up, we buzzed into labor and delivery. We went in there, and I checked in, answered all the questions, did all the things, and then they took us back to a delivery room. And a girl, like, had me go and put a gown on, and she kind of got things sort of set up, and then she said, your nurse will be in here. So, I mean, it was like being shown to your table. Like, it was very strange. You know, that's not at all what my experience was the first time. And So as I'm there and the nurse comes in and she's going through all the things and the questionnaires and, whatever, and getting everything set up to like set up my IV and, just laying out all the medical equipment and everything. And then she starts talking about what they're going to be giving me. So what the plan was is go in at 10 o'clock, be given Cytotec. 1 or 2 doses is what my doctor said would probably be all that I would end up getting. And if I didn't go into labor by the next morning, basically by shift change the next morning, then I would have Pitocin administered and then we would start that. I did not want Pitocin. If you haven't followed along, there's a story behind it. I did not want Pitocin. I was nervous about it. I really struggled with pulling the trigger on being induced. On September 20th, I was 40 weeks and a day, I think, or 40 weeks and 2 days. And so, I think it was 40 weeks and a day. And so it's not like I waited terribly long, but I did put some thought into it and I just decided to go ahead with it. So the nurse then is talking about Cytotec and how it can kind of mess with people. And what's bad about Cytotec is it's a pill. And so once it's in your system, it's in your system. There's nothing that can be done. It's in there. Whereas Pitocin is on like an IV drip and they can regulate that. They can do more. They can do less. They can cut it off completely. They can cut off the supply. With that, I'll be totally honest and frank because I'm not a science head. I don't understand how there really is a difference in that. It's in your bloodstream. It's in your bloodstream. Like, that's how my brain works. But you don't have to correct me because clearly I'm wrong, because that's what she said. She's just like, we can regulate Pitocin. We cannot regulate Cytotec. But it wasn't that I was like getting an option. It was already set up that I was going to come in and get Cytotec and then get Pitocin in the morning. So we're there. I'm, IV, she's doing all the whatever, blood draws, whatever that was. I don't even remember now what all that entailed. Okay. So I was given Cytotec around 11 p.m. and it's this pill. Honestly, she took it out of this package. It looked like it had once been a whole pill and was cut into quarters, is what it looked to me like. It was very crumbly and chalk-like. She said that it notoriously tastes bad. I did not notice the taste at all, if I'm being honest. And it is meant to go between your gums and just kind of sit there. And so, until it dissolves. And so that's what I did. I didn't notice the taste. I'm there. I'm like grooving. And they were like, hey, you are having contractions every 1 to 4 minutes apart naturally on your own. You came in here and we hooked the monitors up to you and you are having contractions every 1 to 4 minutes. Do you not feel those? And I said, yes, I feel those. I've been having those for about 2.5 weeks. I've been dilated to a 1 for 3 weeks. And by this point I was quite a bit more effaced, like something like 75% effaced or something. So I don't know if I would have naturally gone into labor in the next few days after that. I have no idea. But I do think that there were blessings in disguise, even though there were things happening that I didn't want theoretically, ideally in my birth plan or in my heart and soul. I didn't want it. I was going with it. I think it was a God thing. I think it was supposed to happen. So, I'm laying there and everything is just as it is. Nurses are out. I did find out in there amongst there somewhere, the lead nurse on that shift, it was totally a meant to be thing that I went in when I did and it happened the way that it did, because that nurse was a midwife and I was losing my mind over it. I was so excited that I got a midwife. And she was all for my birth plan. Everything was like more natural and she was like here for it. And so was the other nurse. She wasn't a midwife, I don't believe, but she really had a lot of knowledge and she was great. So the nurses left. We're there, whatever, we're settled in and we're just waiting, right? My husband gets up and he goes to go make coffee because they have like a little lounge area there. Anyway, so he gets up to go make coffee and I'm laying there and I felt a bit of a gush. And that's how my water broke with my daughter. It wasn't like a big gush. It wasn't everything at once. It was just like a slow leak, if anything. And so whenever that happened, I told my mom, I said, I either just peed the bed a little bit or my water is breaking. And I was like, think it's my water, because this is exactly what happened with the toddler. And so I called the nurse in and I said, okay, here's the thing. History kind of repeating itself. This is how my water broke with my daughter. And I think blah, blah, blah. She checks me. She's like, I don't see anything. Whatever. And she's standing there. And then another big gush came and I said, hey, you should be able to see that. So she looked and she goes, oh yeah, we're going to call that water. I was like, okay, so my water has broken. Okay. And it was coming gushes, gushes, gushes. My husband comes back and we're laughing about it. It's funny. I'm laying there just wetting the bed, just water coming out, you know, and it's funny. I'm laughing. He's laughing. We're laughing. And the next thing I know, I have this very sharp, abrupt pain. I'll show you. Right here. It's below my belly. It's above like my pelvis. Like here's my hip. Here's like the bend of my leg. It's like right here. It's like this very sharp, abrupt pain. And there was such like a popping, bursting sensation in my body right there, to the point that I could hear it, to the point that it was so significant to me and my body that I asked my mom and my husband if they could hear it also. Like, of course they said no, but I was like, what was that? What was that? What was that? And I'm like, could you guys hear that? And it was painful. And then the next thing I know, I am in a major contraction. I mean, it was like not anything. Honestly, it was nothing that I've experienced before, because my contractions with this labor and delivery were quite a bit different than the ones with my toddler. The sensations were different. It's very strange. So, and I don't know if it had to do with being induced, or like the first time they said I was dehydrated and I had preeclampsia. So I don't know. There could have been a whole host of things that were interfering with the sensation of the actual contraction. But it bumped up and it was like crazy feeling. And I was like, okay, I'm trying to get myself in the thought process of handling these things naturally. Like, I'm like, okay, you can do this. You can handle anything for a minute. You can, all the affirmations. I'm like, you can do this. And I'm like trying the breathing techniques and everything. The nurses come back in, everything's like going down, right? And it's like, okay, so we're doing this, and it's contraction, contraction, contraction. And I even thought, wow, like these are coming, they were like rapid fire. I'm like, what is going on here? But at the same time, I'm like, this isn't how the contractions were when I had my daughter, but maybe I don't remember it. And like, I know they came pretty quick whenever I had her, but this is like the, you know, and then, so I did that for probably half hour, 45 minutes, probably half hour, 45 minutes, something like that. And it became, I am a person with a history of panic attacks, and it became very difficult to not have panic attack. So I was trying to stay focused and stay centered to handle the contraction and power through the contraction. But then I had to shift my focus to not having a panic attack. And then I was having a hard time getting a grip. And then I was like, you're kidding me. I'm going to have an epidural, because I'm like, I can't have a panic attack in the middle of trying to labor. Like, I'm not even very far into this. What is going on with me? Am I this weak of a person? And this is what I'm thinking. And the nurses said, okay, no, that's not what's going on. They're like, this side attack kicked your body into like overdrive, high gear, overdrive. Overdrive is what they kept using, the word overdrive. And they said, since you started this, you have not come down all the way off a contraction. You have not come down off a contraction. You have been contracting, and then with like huge spikes. And then it doesn't like come back down. It like, you're here and it goes way up and then it comes like that. But you're contracting the entire time. Your body is not getting any rest whatsoever. So they said, with your permission, we'll give you this shot, and you'll have to forgive me. I do not remember what this drug was. It started with a T. But they said, well, we can give you this shot and it should regulate that. So it wasn't too much time after that drug was administered. It then brought things down to where I then started having contractions every 2 minutes. I would have a contraction that would last for nearly a minute or around a minute. I would get about a minute break, and then I would start another one. that break cleared my head so much. It then enabled me to get some composure, get a grip, get a handle on things. And so then I felt like I really started that process. And so then that was probably around midnight, a little bit after, when that happened. So probably a little after, I would say. So then I started the real, I felt like natural, I mean, even though the drugs had been administered, but the more natural progression of labor. The contractions were, I will say, for no more dilated than I was, I felt like the contractions were very strong. You know, because I was like at a 2 and I was having like contractions that either I'm very weak or I was having contractions that they describe around like, I don't know, like 6, 7, probably like a 7. They were pretty significant, but I was like dealing with it. I was breathing through them. I felt like I had a handle on things, you know, I was able to power through and then bring it down. And like here and there, I would have to like kind of fend off a little bit of a panic attack, but it was nothing, it was not the same. It just was not the same. So in the course of my labor, in the course of that time of labor, and I'll get into what happens next, but from about a 2 to a 6.5, I labored naturally. I did everything myself. And so what was happening, and not myself, I had help from the nurses and my husband and my mom some. But I was like on all fours on the bed. I had a peanut ball. I was on the side of the bed. I was taken to the bathroom and I labored on the toilet some. They gave me this other thing to put my foot on, like on the side of the bed. So it was a lot of like movement, a lot of back and forth stuff. I was never placed on like a labor ball. And whenever I was about a 6.5, they were getting ready to put me in the shower. And that's what I thought I wanted. I was so excited that this hospital had hydrotherapy. I was so excited that I could get in a tub or get in the shower. And I was like, because I just know that that is what I'm going to need. This labor was just like different, and it ended up like I actually refused the shower because what was helping, and I was scared to try anything else. I was scared because after I had labored for like a couple hours, a few hours, whatever, I was scared to like do something other than what was working. Does that make sense? So what was working so well was counter pressure. Counter pressure is like sent from above. Counter pressure is the best thing. And if you haven't heard of counter pressure, there's different ways that you can do it. My favorite was like someone places their hands here and just gives it all they have. Like they just like push in, and what it's like a nerve block. It blocks off the nerves. Another thing that they were doing was grabbing the sides of my hips and pushing up. Here's what I'll say about that. That was painful. That was painful because my skin was going up with it. And it was helpful, but it was not as helpful. And I got a lot of that. But it was a lot to do with the positions I was being put in and stuff like that too. So the counter pressure was amazing. The nurses, like for whatever reason, these nurses, it was like they were assigned to me. They like once I went into that labor, they did not leave the room. Like they were hoofing it. The physical labor that they experienced, not my labor, the physical labor that they put in on their jobs that night. Oh my gosh, like I just can't say enough. I cannot say enough. They were my painkiller. Physically, they had to do so much to keep the pain down. And if they weren't there, I was like, somebody please help me. Somebody please help. I was like, somebody get back here. My husband tried it, and he said that, because I tried to show him counter pressure before I went into labor, before I went in to have this baby. And he just didn't. And so when we were in the room and they showed him how to do it, and he was starting to do it, he was uncomfortable with the amount of pressure that needed to be applied, because he said afterwards, I put so much pressure back there. And when you were saying harder, he was like, I felt very uncomfortable with that. And I will get into why he said that later too. As I'm editing this video, I realized how long it is, and so the story, and so I'm going to make this a 2-part. With that being said, this is the conclusion of the first part. I will say that what I forgot to put in this video, look how bad my eye is, just not getting any better, is it? What I forgot to put in this video was how loud I was, how labor intensive this labor process was. I did talk about it, you know, the impact on the nurses, and I discussed like the positions I was put in, but it just doesn't even remotely grasp, and I don't think that I could probably even say really. I would have had to record exactly how labor intensive and active and exhausting everything the natural labor portion of my labor was, and I was very loud, and at the time I'm just trying to birth a baby, and I barely cared. I was in a lot of pain, but I was trying to do the J breath thing, and that's where you like vocalize your breathing. So, and I got a little loud with that because I was in pain also. So for me to gain control, I was very loud. You know, it wasn't that I was like screaming and high pitch. It wasn't that really. I don't remember if I screamed at all, but I had very loud, low tone breathing. And like, I just think about the couples that were like next to me, the rooms next to me, if they were trying to labor, or if, you know, they had their baby and they were just in recovery and they're trying to get sleep, because I did this all night long. So I'm part of someone else's hospital experience story. And I feel so bad if I kept people, well, I know I had to have. I feel so bad that I kept people from resting. And like, it just makes me feel bad. I mean, I was going through it for sure, but I feel so bad for those people. I wish like I could send them a card or something. I'm so sorry. I was being so loud and kept you from resting when you needed it. Oh, it just makes me feel terrible. But anyway, that's the conclusion of part 1. I'll post part 2 soon, and we'll see you next time. Bye.